Direct and indirect communication are both very important if you want to speak English well. There are certain cases where you need direct communication. You have to express whatever you want to say. But there are other places where the indirect form is better. You may confuse this with the grammar item direct speech and indirect speech. Please don't do that. You will find a video on direct and reported speech, which is indirect speech, on this channel if you look for it. If you need to find that video and you can't, please send me a comment and I will give you the link of that video. Direct communication, what is it, how to use it, when to use it, are all given here in these 5 tips. You can think of many other contexts where you can practice direct communication. You can also see where all you want indirect communication. Suppose you promise your children that you will take them somewhere. Then the child reminds you that you said we'll go to the zoo today. There you need indirect communication. Can we plan some other day? I'm not free today, and so on. Instead of saying, no, I cannot take you today, you can always say that we can go some other day. In this way, direct and indirect communication have their own uses. Let us see in these 5 tips. The first tip is to know what is the difference between direct and indirect communication, where you have to distinguish. Direct communication is brief and clear. It is also very simple. Whereas indirect communication often uses non-verbal clues. Your facial expression, a small smile or a welcoming expression. You can also use words that are very polite, words which are not straightforward itself. Suppose somebody says that I want to spend some time with you next week. Then what do? You are not free next week. You can say, sorry, that's not possible. Direct communication. Somebody says, I would like to spend some time with you next week. You say, sorry, that's not possible. Direct. It's simple, it is clear, and it is also brief. You did not elaborate. Now, indirect, suppose you want to say. You say, maybe that is not possible. Maybe I won't be able to spare time next week. I think I might be very busy. I feel really bad that we are not able to spend some time together. In this way, you put it politely, you put it in a soft, gentle way, and you also use non-verbal clues. Your facial expression shows that you are really feeling sorry. That is the difference between direct and indirect. Now look at all the situations in your life and see where you have been using direct communication and where you have been using indirect. In your own language, in your own experiences. Put it into English now and practice. Here is the second point, which gives you details about direct communication. Very often in your professional life, you will need direct communication. But when it comes to your personal relationships, you may use indirect communication. Therefore, let us see first what direct communication is. Look at the second line which I've given you here. That is, you don't leave anything to interpretation. That means you don't leave the idea to be understood in a different way in a group. Suppose you are talking to a group of people and assigning duties. Then you have to clearly say that this team will do this work, this other team will do the other work, and you are making a list, or you're giving it individually by saying you will do this work, somebody else will do the other work, so that there is no problem of understanding. You don't leave it to interpretation by saying all of you share the work. Now if you say all of you share the work, everybody says, I was not told to do anything, therefore I will not do. So that is the point about interpretation. You have to be so clear that you express your intention or your opinion in such a clear way that there is no problem of understanding. The person who listens to it or the group of people who listen to it don't feel as though they haven't understood you. This is important, because unless you do that, in most cases, in cases where you want clarity, it is something which suffers. Especially in writing also, this is important. If you give clear instructions, then your writing has to be clear. You have to express everything you want to say clearly. Otherwise, you can give 2 or 3 interpretations by saying either you do this or you do this or you do this. You give 3 choices. Nobody understands which one is important. Nobody does anything. And then you find that the work is incomplete. So in direct communication, most of the time we use it, and that is why we did it first in tip number 2. In tip number 3, we are talking about indirect communication. If you think you can manage this, please take it up. When you say this, you are giving it indirectly. That means you have a choice. Either you do it or you don't do it. Now, if you are in a professional situation, this doesn't work, because then nobody will take the responsibility. Nobody will say, I am accountable for this job. For this role, I have to do it. So when you say perhaps you can help me, or maybe I will be able to meet you, then what you're doing is you're leaving 2 interpretations. You're leaving 2 choices. Either choose one or choose the other. This is indirect communication. In many cases where, as I told you already, we want to be very polite, we don't want to sound as though we are giving an order, their indirect communication is very good. Suppose you want to tell your children that it's time to study, then you can't use indirect communication. You say that take your books and start doing your homework. Direct communication, simple. But suppose it's vacation time and your children are not, they don't have that much work to do. Then you can say that maybe after you finish playing, you could do some study. Or maybe you could take your books and look through them when you have free time. Perhaps you would like to spend some time with your school books. Or if you have finished playing, now you could read your own textbooks. Now these are all indirect. They are not direct. So what you find is that when we use indirect communication, we are not making it so clear. We are putting it in the way that the person can choose. And there are no words of ordering. There are no words of aggressiveness. In an assertive communication, I've told you that being aggressive or being passive is not the best form of communication. There are situations where you might need it, but not a good way of communicating. Whereas here I'm telling you that both direct and indirect communication are useful. We can't say one is better than the other. It depends on where you want to use what, in what context, which one is suitable. tip number 4 is where you can use it best. Where should you use direct communication which is best suited for that context? If you want to give instructions, or if you want to say something where the person has to follow whatever is said, the person has no choice, the person is not able to say yes or no to it, usually from a higher level to a lower level. We call it as vertical communication. Horizontal is at the same level. Vertical is superior officer talking to a subordinate. Then you use direct communication. There, direct communication is very important because without that direct communication, you are not able to go ahead. I've given you an example, as you can see on the slide itself. Complete the assignment on time. If you say there is no choice, you have given a time limit by Monday, so you say complete the assignment on time. On time means on the dot of Monday, not Tuesday, not Wednesday, but the date, the time which has been given to you. Now suppose you don't want to do that. Suppose you don't want to give an order. Then you can say that, somebody is helping you do the assignment. It is not that person's assignment alone. That person is also helping you. Now here you can't order that person because that you and that person are doing it together. So you can say, since you are busy, that person is doing, the other person in your team is doing all the work. Then you have to use indirect communication. It is, it is not the hierarchical, vertical communication. It is on one level where you say, I request you to finish it on time. Do you think you could finish it on time? May I request you that you finish the assignment on time? In this way, you don't want to sound as though you're giving an order, because it is a context where it is, horizontal communication. You need to be polite. You cannot order. You are not in that position. There you use indirect communication. In the first 4 tips, I have given you many ideas for practice. Now you must also know that there are certain disadvantages which you have to curb, you have to control, so that your direct or indirect communication is not misunderstood. People listening to you get the feeling that when you're using direct communication, that they feel you're very rude, you're very impolite, you are blunt, you are ill-mannered. These are possible. So you have to use indirect communication where you might sound rude if you are using direct communication. Whereas if you use indirect communication, people might say, we did not understand, it is not clear at all, it is very vague, it is something which needs further clarity. And then you have people saying that your instructions are very confusing, what you said is very confusing. You go to eat in a friend's house, that friend says, what would you like to have? What do you prefer having? Then you say, oh, anything which you prepare, I will have. It's very polite, it's very decent. But it's very confusing for the host when you don't give some direct hint as to what you prefer, what you're allergic to, what you can't eat, or what you completely avoid. Otherwise, they prepare only those things which you don't want. It is like the story of the fox and the stork. I'm sure you've heard that the fox invites the stork for dinner, the stork invites the fox for dinner. Nobody can eat anything. So there, direct and indirect have certain contexts. So if you remember that what are the disadvantages of this, what are the advantages of this, then your practice will become better. If you sit and rehearse for a long time, you will find that You know exactly where to make your communication simple and clear and brief, direct. You will know exactly where you need to make your communication very polite, very decent, and sometimes giving a lot of choice. So try practicing this and see how effective your communication becomes, how inspiring people find your communication. If you do this, then let me know how, what impact your communication is getting, what response you are getting from your audience. I hope you have liked the video. Please subscribe if you haven't done it. Press the bell icon so that you get notifications. Like and hype the video and share it as widely as you can. Join the channel as a member to attend all the live classes I conduct and also to get other benefits. Thank you and all the best.